Ever had a plan that felt rock solid until it wasn't? Good. That means you're doing real development. In this minisode, we're back with Sylvia and Africa. You met them in episode 6, where they talked us through their very first infill project in Midtown Sacramento. One block over, they picked up a second lot, thinking they could rinse and repeat. But this time, the city had other plans. Between zoning overlays, historic restrictions, and a curb cut rule that derailed everything, their original playbook got thrown out. What they did next is a masterclass in adaptation, and it's exactly the kind of pivot that separates hopeful investors from actual developers.
Yes. So our second very exciting development project is it's actually really close to the other one. It's just literally one street over. We really are focusing on Midtown Sacramento because it's just a very good location. You have the Met Center, you have, the courts and the lawyers, and all the young people want to live there. It's kind of like the hipster area. It's, urban infill. It's these little lots that we're identifying and we're going after them. So this particular one is a lot that it was a pretty interesting change of plans, because our conceptual, when we first saw the lot, we thought, you know what, we're just going to copy and paste the same design that we are doing at the other project. Instead of 2 units side by side, the townhomes is going to be 3. So same architect, spoiler alert, but yeah, same architect. And he looked at it. He went to the planning department and did all his due diligence and whatnot. And we had our conceptual. It's like, okay, we're going to do 3 side by side townhomes. Now, when we're about to get into contract with the we started to kind of do a little more research back and forth with the city, and the concept had to change. We'll tell you more about why. But now what we actually have on our hands is we're going to do one building, and it's going to be 6 condos. It's going to have 3 stories, and it's going to be 2 condos in each story. And that's completely different from what we are doing at the other project. And we originally thought it was going to be a copy and paste of the other one, right? So we went in with a lot of confidence, and then we're had to stop on our tracks, do additional research, and that's where we are. It is going to be a little bit of a different process because we do not have to split the lot. It's just vacant lot. There's no previous houses in the lot. So we're just going to go through entitlements straight to construction. So yes, that's what that one is. It's 1 building, 6 condos.
Originally, this was going to be a 3-unit townhome project. Same architect, same game plan as the first deal. But after a little pushback from the city and one very important curb cut regulation, they had to scrap everything. Instead, now they're developing a 6-unit stacked condo building, complete with off-street parking, shared amenities, and a whole new set of entitlement and design requirements. So how did you go from, was that just a zoning thing once you got in and you realized, wait, we can't copy and paste? How did you get from copy and paste, hey, we've got this model we're going to, completely brand new, let's go condos?
Well, we had a plan where in front of each condo we were gonna have a driveway, and this lot is actually very shallow. Like the depth is not sufficient to accommodate that driveway. On paper, it is. However, for the specific city of Sacramento, for that historic district, there is a couple of regulations, and I read the whole thing because I went in there ready to battle them. I'm like, I read this whole thing. There's nowhere where you guys are saying this. And they said, well, we do say here that for a historic district, da-da-da-da-da. But the point is, they do not allow new curb cuts. If you don't have a cut already on that, and that's something that, of course, we didn't know, and the architect didn't know either. So that kind of killed the plan for us to have the driveways. But the second thing that killed it is for that particular street. And so imagine you come in, very busy street, and you're trying to go into your house. And if there's any traffic and you're turning around, they don't allow for the car to sit on the curb for a moment, causing traffic. So long story short, they require a longer depth than normal for these driveways, and that really makes the building really skinny. That wouldn't work, commercially. Just you still have the square footage, but it would just be a pretty ridiculous, first ground level for that building. So yeah, then that killed that. But through that meeting, city reviewer himself said, but you can do condos with, off-street parking, and we will allow that, and we issue the permits, so that you can have designated parking off street, which is really nice. Parking is a big deal in this Midtown area, of course. So we went to that option.
And at that point, backing up, had you purchased the property yet? Did you get a longer purchase and sale contract with the seller to go through entitlements?
We were under contract. We had not actually pulled the trigger and purchased yet. So we explained to the sellers that we were doing our due diligence, and how with fix and flips, your due diligence will be like 10 days at the most, or 15 days. We originally asked him for 3 months, then we asked for more time. Because, and it wasn't because we were anticipating this change. It was really trying to get all the conceptuals, trying to make sure that we talk to our Harmony lender and have them underwrite. They had to get like their appraiser out there that took 3 weeks and all of that. So we just upfront asked for a lot of time. I think we asked for a total of 6 months. We didn't use all of that, but we were going through construction part in our community, and that was also advised, like you want to ask for as many months as you can get so that you can do your due diligence.
This pivot was made possible because of one thing. They asked for time. Sylvia and Africa negotiated a 6-month feasibility period in their purchase contract. That window allowed them to redesign, run comps, and loop in a more experienced architect who could take the lead on design review, parking compliance, and future HOA structuring. For any emerging developers, this is the move. Ask for time, build in flexibility, and don't run into closing before your concept is viable. And then did you end up closing on it while you went through the permitting process, or what happens after that?
Yeah, so we did end up closing on it. We had to kind of explain the new concept. And they are a Harmony lender. They do a viability study, they call it, and they use a third-party company to do the viability study. So basically a company that goes to the city, double checks that the city is going to allow you what you're saying that you're going to do. They double check if you're going to have any variances in order to do this. And then they get an appraisal to confirm your proposed value after construction, what you're going to sell it for. So they had already done all of this on the previous concept, and they had to kind of redo that on the new concept, which is good. More confidence, because a third party, not just the Harmony lender, is also looking at this and double checking, is it possible, is it viable, is it financially viable as well, is it going to sell for what you're expecting it to, and all of that. So we went through all of that and we closed.
They also walk us through how they worked with their hard money lender to fund the new concept. Spoiler alert, the lender required a full third-party viability study, which instead of resisting, Africa reverse engineered to understand how to vet future projects herself. It's a reminder, every step in development is just a chance to build your own system. And then what happened after that? You say you closed. Was there still a permitting process? Did you do a design build with a contractor? How did you find the contractor who builds condos?
Yes. So we have 2 contractors. One of them, he actually doesn't just do condos specifically. He does condos, he does single family homes, he does new construction is his specialty. And he still does fix and flips, just like larger projects. And the other contractor, he's done townhome style homes. He's never done condos. But our realtor, she's a developer as well, and she's also a flipper. Her contractor was doing recently nearby condos as well. And we ended up kind of talking to him. We're not actually necessarily going to use him for the build. And I reached out to him when I started to have doubts about our architect, after Sylvia and I talked about the fact that maybe this is not the best architect. And I started to want to just interview new architects, and I just wanted to know who he uses, because he does a lot of buildings in Midtown specifically. Also because I felt like the architects should have known about the whole detail in regards to the parking. And so his architect is the one that we ended up connecting with, and he's now actually going through another set of plans, like the first one that he's going to submit through design review. So we're at the very beginning of it. We still have to go through the design review through the city. He submitted, we had that meeting before we bought with them after they kind of switch our plan. He submitted some conceptuals to them, but, with renders and everything so that they can visualize, and they gave him some comments. And now he's going to actually sit and do the actual bulk of the work. So hopefully in a couple of weeks here, we're due for the first, set for us to review. Same thing as the other project now. We're going to go through all the entitlements. We're not going to necessarily worry about raising yet. We would like to raise next year when we're fully entitled, ready to go. And yeah, that's when we're going to bring in the private money lenders.
I think it could be a good segue for us to also just talk about some of the plans we have for questions on exit strategy and pick your brain.
Yeah. I was going to bring up agents. What HOA do you need to form? Are you doing CC&Rs for all the common areas? So maybe do you guys want to get into what that looks like? Because depending on how you sell it off, what mechanisms are you going to have to put into place since they're using shared buildings and roofs?
In some of our exit, because that is sort of one of our roadblocks and one of the hurdles for us, because that was in our original plan. We didn't start with condos and we ended up with it, which is fine. It's a learning opportunity. But yes, one of the reasons why I actually like this particular architect, he works in-house with this surveyor, this is an engineering firm, and they specialize in not just HOAs, but PUDs and any of that. So I actually knew the surveyor firm before because I went to them when we first found the other project. I found another one that's really similar to that, but because the first one, we were not involved with the split, I wanted just a consultation to understand the cost, the timeline, all of that. Another deal was brought to us. It was a development to build a building with 5 units, and that was going to be condos, and I had already gone to him. Coincidentally, they worked together, which is awesome. He kind of explained it to us, the process. He's going to kind of hold our hand. We're going to be very involved and learn every step of the way, but hold our hand to create that HOA and, just kind of advise us. In fact, when we were doing the financial analysis and we had to send it to the lender, we needed his report to kind of come up with how much will the HOA be for the future, for each unit and all of that. And he did a simulation and kind of gave us a rundown of what it entails and the timeline and all of that. So that's going to be brand new, to us, and it's going to be a learning opportunity, but it's good because then now we have that and, we can analyze it in the future.
So here's what's happening. They're building under a PUD, planned unit development, which means every unit lives like a home, but legally functions like a condo. That required setting up an HOA, working with a civil and surveyor who gets small infill sites, and designing smart for 550 square foot units with private yards, balconies, even rooftop access. This is what it takes to make small units feel big and hit price points real buyers can afford.
Yeah, so now that we have switched strategies with the 6-unit condo proposal, we've been asking our realtors and doing some comp analysis on the market. And since we have a couple of teammates right here, just all giving our own opinion, sometimes one of us have to play the devil's advocate and just really try to poke hole through the plan. So I think the bright side, the vision for this 6-unit condo is that we're really trying to offer affordable housing for young single professionals who are they can't spend too much money on their primary home. They want the convenience of living near downtown Midtown. They have to get to their work quickly, and they don't mind either parking on the street side or even biking. So when Africa brought to me her plan and the vision for affordable housing, especially that she has family members who can't afford to buy a single family home at the price range in California, so that they're forced to rent. Can we actually offer these people an opportunity to own a space that doesn't have an insane HOA fee? And so the cost per condo in the end, we're currently thinking of marketing around $350K, which if we really calculate down into the PITI could possibly be lower than a person paying rent in a similar style house. So the other, the reserve part of it is that we also don't have many affordable housing even available in the area. Usually when we look at flips, for example, or the new construction for the townhomes, we really want to look at what are the comps nearby that has very similar configuration, like very similar floor plan and the interior design touch within a 1 mile radius, like ideally in the same zip code or even like within a few streets. Sometimes in downtown, midtown, you're different, like you have a different vibe street by street, right? Like pocket by pocket in the neighborhood within that are sold within the 1 year range. And for condo, like we are aware of the fact that condo market is like the softening, and then the general market is softening, and the condo market is kind of in the forefront of that. And when you're looking at appreciation of condos, it is like not necessarily the one that's performing the best. And then when we're doing some research, it was hard to find things that are matching exactly what we are offering, that are like new build, that are so our square footage is also on a smaller side, currently around 550 square feet. Of course, the interior is going to be beautifully well done. We're going to have like different offerings. So for people on the bottom floor, they're going to have a backyard space. People on the top floor have rooftop access or even balconies. So there are definitely amenities that we are going to offer in this new condo that other people are not going to have access to. And it's in a pretty like good location that's close to like some really nice grocery store and hip coffee shops. But like if we're talking strictly through when we're presenting the comps, like it's hard to find the one-on-one comps. And I think that this is a kind of a common issue, especially for new developers who are just they have a vision, they're trying to build something new, offer something new, but how do we like validate our idea and just making sure that when we put this out on the market, people are going to like it, people are going to buy it. Of course, like one thing that we thought about is like, how do we do a very solid marketing plan so that like before we're even done, we're like really pushing it out to the community, like getting buyers in, like maybe participate in the design process and just getting those into people's ears and eyes. But on the other hand, like as a devil advocate, like I also want to make sure we're absolutely doing our like demographic research, our like just condo market research, and just making sure that we have 6 units here. And ultimately, they either all need to sell or we have to consider a different strategy.
Sylvia drops a gem here for every first timer. When you're building a new product in a softening market, you can't rely on comps alone. Sometimes you are the comp. So how do you validate a product that doesn't exist yet? You lean into the data and the community. Get feedback from realtors on what buyers actually want. Start social media outreach before you break ground. Talk to employers, neighbors, and even potential tenants. Don't wait for the buyers to come to you. Go out and find out what they need, and then build that.
Yep. So, I mean, as a developer, to some extent, you are setting the market in some ways. And I know there's a lot of micro communities that are popping up across the country, and whether they're cottage or tiny homes or whatnot. And so it doesn't exist yet. And I've done a lot of that in the clean energy space where it doesn't exist yet. We literally have to go prove the concept. Hey, can we chat for a second? Since you're listening to this podcast, you're already thinking like a developer. You see the potential in your community, and you're ready to do more than just watch from the sidelines. That's exactly why we created the Local Developer Vault. It's a free resource full of tools, templates, and trainings to help you take action. And here's the best part. When you sign up, you'll also get access to our local real estate developer community. It's full of people just like you who are making real things happen in their neighborhoods. So don't just listen to the stories. Become the next one that we spotlight on our show. The link in the show notes to unlock the vault and join our movement. I think where you're covering yourself is that you have housing and potentially looking at it from a sense of maybe it's not strictly affordable, but maybe it's attainable housing, because just getting anyone in to have ownership of any kind, especially in California, is a huge step to where they can use that and parlay into something else. And we are downsizing the size of our units. I mean, we went to where we doubled the square footage of a house that a family lives in and shrunk our family size. And now we're going, wait, that was stupid. What are we doing? So, and the fact that you said it's all walkable, that completely hits the concept of who you're trying to target to come into this. In this process, do you have multiple realtors and multiple people that you can talk to? Because they're the ones who are talking to the buyers all the time. I think I would go deep in the realtor community to say, hey, this is the product that's out there. What are you hearing from the people who want to be buyers or maybe can't be buyers and are trying, and getting that feedback? We had Rajan on our pod, and he's building this new community, and he did say something that makes a ton of sense for anyone who's in development. Leverage social media. I know we sometimes, to some extent, we don't want to go out there and put out what we're doing, but if you build a buzz about this property, you could have some really cool branding, and you could build that excitement in the community. And you're still in the boring spot now. Nobody even knows that you're working on this project. The minute you break ground is your huge opportunity to start posting reels and to talking and to, as neighbors or someone's walking down the street and getting live opinions. So I would say consider the social media aspect, and maybe even talking to the local businesses and their employees and kind of getting a pulse, because what we found in a lot of markets is that employers, and you won't see this unless you talk to them, but they have to turn away people because they can't find somewhere to have housing. So they go, I lost out on this, or I couldn't expand my business here. I had to go somewhere else where they could afford to live, or they had housing that was available to them. So, which leads into the next. Is there some sort of corporate leasing? I mean, it's only 6 units. Is there a possibility that there could be some kind of corporate leasing, or there a company who says, hey, I've got people, like, you build this and we've got the people who can buy these? But just kind of putting all the different feelers out to prove the market.
Yeah, I'm actually
those are some awesome ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you mentioned a lot of things, because some of the things that you actually said were ideas that my realtor also brought out. But I am just super passionate about, increasing density. And like you said, it's really, really hard with the numbers and construction costs for you to actually put out affordable housing, but put housing that is attainable for people. You have lots of young adults that are, new to the employment market, and they have good jobs. They were real close to the Bay Area. So you have a lot of tech and people that can pretty much live anywhere they want, but they can't afford their houses. They're renting because they cannot afford anything. You have a lot of young people that have, the type of jobs that this society now creates. You have YouTubers, you have influencers, and they cannot afford a house. And this housing is going to be half what is a normal house here. Like, even if you're looking at a house where it needs renovations, you can't even, as a flipper, we can't even find those numbers. And I know that young people, do have a different lifestyle that we used to in the past. They're okay with the smaller homes. Actually, that's a concept right now, try to simplify things. So I have zero doubt that it's going to be something that it's needed. It's just needed. It's just like we're creating something that is needed. I'm actually afraid that our buyer is going to be an investor that's just going to come and gobble them all out, because we're right next to the med center. We're right next to really good sources of, rental income. And I'm like, no, please don't come, go buy something else. You have money to do that. Hopefully the buyer is really our avatar, which is this young adult that, wants to be independent and not live at home anymore and doesn't want to rent, and for them to have the opportunity to own and eventually build equity. So I'm so happy to hear all those options, because, we're going to have to think outside the box, but I don't think it's going to be difficult, because we're putting something out there that's needed, so we're going to have to get creative and do all of that.
Something you can do as the developer. Now, you have to be careful because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot, and I would talk to the city, but you can literally put into your HOA and into your bylaws, you can put in certain restrictions. You could even potentially put in deed restrictions for what can and can't be used, this property can be used for. Like, it could be something as simple as you can't STR it, which kind of helps knock out a layer of investors. But you've also got to think about, you've got to resell. Potentially, though, in talking to the city, you could see if we truly provide affordable or attainable, depending on their levels, if we provide that, are there tax abatements and incentives that the future buyers can take? Because if you knock down those property taxes, that makes it more attainable to them as well. So if it sells, like if you sell within a certain threshold, sometimes there are tax incentives that help you get to that attainable housing. So it helps get everything down to the right levels to where it makes sense. So we found some programs in Tampa. One of offers something crazy like $40,000 or $50,000 grant that as long as you stay in it for X amount of time, you don't have to pay it back, and it's down payment assistance, which is huge for first-time home buyers. So I think just even talking to them about incentives, because you could in theory sell for a little bit higher than market as long as you're basically countering their delta by like, but if you do this, then you don't actually come out of pocket for that. And sometimes if you do the homework, I guess, in the research for the buyer and you help lay that path, maybe.
Yeah, that is true. And the good thing about this surveyor engineering firm is that they also very knowledgeable about all of those. So we're definitely gonna, scrape anything that we can get. That's that. And we do have the down payment assistance programs here. We'll have to do more research to understand, what it will mean to what we're trying to do. The surveyor did tell me the option we could put some of those restrictions when you have the 55 and older community. But at the same time, it's like, well, we do want to sell. Right.
It's like you want to try and incentivize, but not.
Your options open. But our mission, and to me is really near and dear to my heart, is to really try to increase density so that we can create more housing for young people out there. And even with the lot splits and continuing to look at those type of projects, that is also the reason, because we are lowering the cost of the land by going into a larger lot and going through the process of splitting it. Some people don't have the patience to do, and it's just time, paperwork, but it's nothing too difficult to do.
Yeah, and that's where you just realize that, okay, I wanted affordable and I thought affordable was this in my mind, but like you said, by increasing density, you're creating that. By splitting lots, you're creating that. The more supply we can put on the market, the better, because then that's going to just help it all counter itself. So sometimes it's adjusting our own expectations, and the more that you do and the more you get involved, the more investors and people you bring in, the more projects you're going to be able to do. So you're not going to be able to probably hit that grand slam on the first one, but everything you're doing is creating that ripple effect, and that hits your goal. So, I mean, for that, you just got to go, okay,
exactly.
keep going.
Exactly. And the first one is really a learning opportunity, just learning a lot. And that in itself, too, is really exciting to us.
They're not just thinking about ROI. They're building with purpose. Their buyers, young professionals, tech workers, nurses, first-time homeowners who want to stop renting but can't afford a traditional single-family home in California. By increasing density and designing smaller, lifestyle-friendly units, they're creating ownership opportunities where none existed before. And if you're worried about investors swooping in, Africa even shares how they're considering deed restrictions and HOA rules to prioritize their real end users.
Exactly. Do you have any so far lessons learned or any other tactical tips to drop on this one for the listeners?
I guess the first lesson learned is attending that initial planning department meeting ourselves, the viability study. I actually even looked into the third party that our Harmony lender uses, because I thought, cool. They're pretty pricey, but then I kind of thought, well, what are they doing exactly? And I kind of realized their steps. They're going to the city, they're talking to the planning department, and then after that, they're getting, an independent appraiser, and they're getting a couple of realtors' opinion and brokers' opinion. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to retrace their steps just so that we can get that information firsthand ourselves at the beginning, instead of just kind of wasting time while you're waiting for the architect to find out. And so that for sure, because it really could shape the project. We're lucky that we built in all this time in the contract that we could have walked away if we wanted to, right? But if you don't, and then when you're about to close, you find out that it's going to be a complete different project. Yeah.
That's a very key point that we're so used to in our flips or just residential house purchases, that it's a shorter time frame, but we do get more time in development for that reason. And developers will close on land at different times, and it depends on your risk profile. Some will not close until they have permits in hand and they can put a shovel in the ground the next day. Some will close at the end of entitlements and they go, okay, I've got the right to do what I want to do, but I still need to go through the permit process. And some will buy on pure speculation and go, okay, I'm going to buy this dirt and I hope I can make something work. And that's why development's risky, and everyone has their different risk profile. I think ultimately, as long as you know that if this doesn't work, I can pivot to this, or this, and eventually you can either break even or make money, because in a more competitive market, you're not going to get the time you need. but where it's not super competitive, where you can build it into your schedule and say, hey, I need this long for feasibility. I need this long for due diligence. I need this long for entitlements. Build it in there. And we've gotten on many deals where we will buy the extensions to say, okay, I'm not done yet. We have 3 more months of entitlements left with the city. I'm going to buy a 90-day extension with a fully refundable and applicable to the sales price extension, to where you are giving them more money, but it's all applicable in the long run. And then if you do have a grand slam of a deal and you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to get this for free, then you could do non-refundable to show the seller that you're in. But I also like to point out to them and go, even though you're not seeing dollars, I've spent this much time and I've spent this much money on architects and city fees and this to go, I'm in this deal. And then the more you talk to them, the more it's just like, okay, they know you're doing the right thing. Not all of them are going to work with you.
And I think sellers for vacant land, I think they're just kind of, they know. I think they expect that you need all that time. It's not like a seller of a home. They know you need all that time. So it's not really difficult to get them to agree.
What I love most about Sylvia and Africa's journey is that they didn't let a pivot become a pause. They hit zoning hurdles, plan revisions, even some self-doubt, but they stayed in motion. They asked smarter questions, got the right team in place, and stayed focused on delivering real attainable housing in a neighborhood they cared about. That's what real development looks like. It's not always clean or predictable, but it's deeply local and worth the effort. And for anyone out there who's wondering if you're ready enough, sometimes the best way to learn is just jump in and start building something real. If you love this minisode and want more boots on the ground stories from real people building in their own backyard, subscribe to the Local Real Estate Developer Podcast on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Like, comment, and share this with a friend who's thinking about stepping into their first deal. We need more locals like you out there doing this work, and we're here to walk you through it.